Red Bull is enduring a struggle. They've already lost the lead in the Constructors' Championship, and to be fair, the Drivers' Championship will also be a tough one to reclaim this year. And all of this has to do with McLaren. Their team and upgrades have provided the drivers with a rocket ship. But it's not only that, as McLaren have dropped another bombshell on Horner and his Red Bull team. This came to light as McLaren revealed they have hired a long-time member of Red Bull's team to serve as its new sporting director. Will Courtney has been with Red Bull since it purchased Jaguar's F1 participation in 2005, and he has been the team's head of race strategy since 2010. Yes, the head of the often applauded Red Bull race strategies. McLaren has announced that he would become the team's new sports director, reporting to racing director Randeep Singh, who in turn reports to team CEO Andrea Stella. It comes after McLaren hired senior technical figure Rob Marshall from Red Bull earlier this year, joining a technical structure that includes fellow ex-Red Bull engineer Peter Prodromou. Adrian Newey, Red Bull's design mastermind, will depart for Aston Martin in 2025, and its sports director, Jonathan Wheatley, will join Sauber as team principal the following year. Red Bull really is collapsing. Red Bull recently revealed a new structure for its racing team after Wheatley's departure at the conclusion of the year, including a promotion for Max Verstappen's race engineer, Giampiero Lambiase. So, for McLaren, what's better than hiring a highly experienced, successful F1 executive to strengthen a critical area of your team, weakening your biggest competitor in the process? That is what McLaren does by bringing in Courtney to strengthen the F1 team leadership structure, which Stella has been continually adjusting since taking over at the end of 2022. Courtney will have played a key role in Red Bull establishing the racing strategy benchmark in Formula One. His two-decade tenure there has left his imprint on the company's razor-sharp operations. His resignation is a major setback for a team that has just recently announced a restructuring of its strong operations to deal with the loss of its own sporting director, Wheatley. Red Bull understands how significant this loss is, especially because he is heading to the team that has surpassed it on the track and in the Constructors' Championship, and is thought to be hurting as a result. Given certain concerns over how McLaren has handled various races this year, Courtney will almost probably assist F1's new pace setter improve even more. Reporting to Singh as sports director will give Courtney control over critical trackside topics such as communicating with the FIA, allowing Singh, whom Stella regards highly, to be stretched more thinly. Singh, as racing director, has overseen both the sporting and strategic aspects. However, it is not depicted as addressing a specific McLaren deficiency, but rather as strengthening its leadership structure with additional knowledge and lowering stress points as others have been juggling many jobs. Courtney will also be responsible for McLaren's many racing endeavours, so his experience is expected to assist the firm as a whole. It will take some time to feel the benefits. He is under contract until 2026, so McLaren may need to engage in some serious negotiating to secure its new recruit in the short future. McLaren will need to find methods to improve in the meanwhile rather than relying on an arrival a year or two from now. But Stella has been instilling the credo, better now, don't wait till tomorrow in this squad for quite some time. We are delighted to welcome Will to McLaren, stated team principal Andrea Stella. His experience, professionalism and passion for motorsport make him the ideal candidate to lead our F1 sporting function. We are now entering a key phase in our journey as a team, and we are confident that he will be a great addition to our strong leadership team as we strive to continue challenging for wins and championships. A Red Bull spokesperson said Courtney will continue to work for the team until that time, although that remark is most likely only the beginning of discussions between the two teams as McLaren attempts to acquire him far sooner. Will has been offered the position of sporting director, the official said. After a long and successful service, being with the team since the Jaguar days, we are sad to see him go, but wish him all the best in this step up. Will continues to be part of the team, seeing out his contract until mid-2026. Courtney is the latest senior staff member to depart Red Bull, with design expert Adrian Newey joining Aston Martin in March 2025. Meanwhile, Sauber's sports manager, Jonathan Wheatley, will take over as team principal beginning next season. Next to all of this happening within Red Bull and McLaren, the fight on the track is also taking a new form, as in a year when the battle for the top of Formula One has been more intense than ever. McLaren's lead in Singapore defied expectations. Indeed, only one weekend after Baku, when Oscar Piastri had to fight tooth and nail with Charles Leclerc for a victory that hung in the balance until the penultimate lap, the scene in Singapore could not have been more different. Lando Norris was in a league of his own in qualifying, holding a comfortable lead early on before, in the words of Christian Horner, taking the piss by increasing his speed to draw nearly 25 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen before the pit stops. Given that McLaren had brought practically no improvements to Singapore, with the exception of a redesigned beam wing, the turnaround in just 7 days does not appear to have a straightforward explanation. However, the key to understanding what happened is that F1's top competitors have different strengths and limitations based on the downforce levels employed each weekend and the kind of circuit. We know Mercedes is better on high-speed tracks, particularly if they are cold, and weaker on hotter low-speed tracks when traction is critical. Ferrari has a high top speed and enjoys slow short corners, whilst Red Bull is arguably still king in terms of overall low-drag, high-speed aero efficiency. However, Singapore demonstrated, particularly in light of what we witnessed at Zandvoort, that McLaren is the clear leader on maximum downforce tracks. For McLaren CEO Andrea Stella, the performance picture in Singapore was all about how well the MCL 38 performed at the downforce levels necessary for the Marina Bay track, which is on the opposite end of the spectrum from Baku, which requires low drag levels. I think if I look at previous races, at this high level of downforce, we seem to be very competitive, he remarked, when asked why Norris was so quick in Singapore. So, I think it might have to do more with the level of downforce than with the fact that we may be chipping away at getting more and more out of the car. A look back at this season almost surely shows that when the downforce levels are maxed out and drag isn't an issue, McLaren shines. Stella added, "I think the car has been strong in this configuration. I always make the examples of Hungary and Zandvoort. Even Hungary was a relatively dominant victory in itself, like Zandvoort and this one. So, I think at the moment, it's more than the car in this configuration. I think it has the better aerodynamic efficiency across the grid. At low drag, I think the efficiency of Ferrari and Red Bull is much more comparable to our car. We know certainly that we have invested much more at this level of downforce than what we have done at lower downforce, even though I've said already after races like Spa and Monza, we have definitely made a step forward in terms of retaining downforce when we reduce the level of drag. Another factor that may be emerging is that McLaren has begun to adjust to winning again, so its race execution when in ahead is considerably more clinical. Rather than being a fresh experience, the drive to win has given it a lot better understanding of how to conduct races to optimize its prospects. Definitely, the more you race at the front, the more you get familiar, not only with the situation, but even with the approach that the team should have, she said. We have been discussing whether we should adjust our weekend schedule because we need to have many more conversations, even with the drivers, in terms of internal competition, something that in the past wasn't part of going racing. Likewise, from a strategic point of view, playing kind of defensive strategies in which you don't have to be the first one pulling the trigger, you just sort of wait for the car in P2 to go, and then you cover. These are scenarios that we were not very familiar with, and now we are getting familiar. So, I think it's fair to say that there's a development of which the team are part of, not only the drivers. Will they be able to create more upsets in the last 6 races? And what will the poach mean for Red Bull in the long term? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.